This is TWiT.
Today marks the 10th anniversary of the iPhone. If you, like me, think it feels like we just celebrated the 10th anniversary, you'd be right. On January 7th of this year, we celebrated the birth of the iPhone because that's when Steve Jobs stood on stage and announced it. But today is the day you could wait in line at a store to buy one 10 years ago today. So we're celebrating again. And we should, no matter how you feel about Apple or the sheeple who follow the company. You cannot deny that any product has sold more than 1 billion units is not worth talking about. Even though there are a lot more Android phones out there than there are iPhones, the iPhone is possibly the best-selling product ever, anywhere. So what are your thoughts on the iPhone's anniversary, Lisa?
The hype is a little overwhelming, to be honest with you. It sort of feels like the people who drag out pregnancy from the pea stick reveal on social media to the gender reveal with balloons and stunt animals to everything else. So not a big fan of the hype. That said, I don't think you can actually talk too much about the impact that the smartphone, more specifically the iPhone, has had on so many industries and so many facets of global culture in the past 10 years. So not a fan of the hype, big fan of the phone.
Well, you said you tweeted today that you didn't really, the iPhone didn't really cleave to you, which I thought was a great verb to use, until you had a newborn. So talk a little bit about that.
Sure thing. I got an iPhone. We got our first ones, I think, as a family. We got out of our old cell phone contracts and got our first iPhones in, I want to say 2008, possibly 2009. And I didn't really see the point to them other than snapping photos here and there. In 2010, I had a baby who slept very poorly. And for the first few months of her life, she would only sleep on me. And so for many, many hours a day, I was either feeding this baby, rocking this baby, or pinned under her while she was sleeping. And that phone became my tether to the outside world. I had other friends who had babies about the same time, so we would text each other at 3 a.m. with plaintive queries like, am I ever sleeping again? There was an app on the phone that let me track my baby's feedings and the input and output, basically, so that you can go to your doctor and reliably report on how the kid is doing. And I could read my Kindle books on the phone too. So again, trapped under baby for hours. It was easy enough to scroll through. And I think I read about 50 books in the first 6 weeks just because, I had nothing else to do other than take care of tiny person. So, and take tons of photos. And so by the time, we got to the point where she's in a crib and I was going back to work, the phone was the first piece of technology I reached for everything from taking photos to taking notes to looking things up to recording things for later. So that was the use case that really turned me into a smartphone consumer. And I think it's that way for a lot of different people with different types of use cases. You may have had people who discovered the phone is a great place to store recipes. I know lots of people who use their phones to snap photos of where their car is in parking garages. My mom and several of her senior citizen friends actually use it that way, where they take photos to fortify their memories when they travel someplace and go on their girls' trips together. And the fact that we've moved to that sort of information capture so effortlessly, I think, is really interesting. And again, it's something that was brought about because of the phone, which, it's not even about talking on the phone. It's about having this tiny portable information recording and information accessing device in your pocket.
Exactly. And so as your daughter's gotten, I assume she's around 7 now, and I assume she doesn't have a phone yet, but I don't know.
No.
And does she want one? Do you see how it's like affecting her at all yet, or do you not see much of that yet?
So I'm one of those no fun people, or I should say I'm a hypocrite when it comes to screen time, because she gets about 3 days a week where I let her to have access to screens. She's aware that you can use the phone to talk to people. But for her, the phone is also, she's aware, if we're waiting at a restaurant, she's like, can I play a game on your phone? Or can you look that up? What she's most interested in, honestly, is Siri, where if we have a question and her father or I don't know the answer off the top of my head, she's like, can you ask Siri? So that's what it's there for. But what's interesting is from her perspective, there's never been a world where somebody hasn't been holding a device that can tell you where you are, tell you how to go someplace, entertain you, help you look things up. like it, or take pictures. Like she literally cannot conceive of a world where all of those things are not possible the very minute you want to do them.
And I don't think we should call ourselves hypocrites for limiting our children's screen time, because unless we also want to call Steve Jobs a hypocrite, because of course he famously didn't let his children have iPads when he was alive. So.
Well, because you've got a child too, right? But I mean, she's older.
I have three children, and the 12-year-olds just got iPhones, and I wish they didn't have them.
Because I've noticed a big difference in behavior between screen time days and no screen time days. And so that was something else to take a look at too, is how does this kind of digital gratification affect your ability to entertain yourself, to sustain attention, to be able to switch tasks, things like that. And watching my daughter's shift in moods and her ability to cope with things after, excessive amounts of screen time, which she has had on occasion, it's forced me to look more at my own habits too.
Absolutely. And so another thing about this celebration and the hype is, you always see people talking about Steve Jobs and, how wonderful he is. And I've been reading Brian Merchant's book, The One Device, the Secret History of the iPhone. I'm going to have a chance to talk to him on Monday on Triangulation. And he really goes through all the other people that were involved in the creation of the iPhone. It's amazing. I mean, it's just we do think about this one creator myth, but there's so many other people involved. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't know what it says about corporate culture where we're able to identify top executives, but we have very little idea who came up with the game-changing ideas behind some of our favorite products, or perhaps more importantly, who came up with the practical implementation of these ideas or the ability to nail down the supply chain. One of the things I read about the iPhone recently, which really stuck with me, was it wasn't just a revolution in consumer behavior. What the iPhone also did was it revolutionized supply chains and manufacturing. And we really shouldn't ignore how it revolutionized the Chinese tech industry, because those companies over there learned tremendous lessons about recruiting, retaining talent. They learned great lessons about how to modify and streamline design processes and manufacturing processes. They learned how to put a really tight control on leaks and corporate information. And those are all developments that are going to ripple across other industries the same way that as a consumer device, the iPhone had a material impact on the camera industry, the music industry, the map making industry, and a whole lot of others.
Well, I'm sure the hype will continue on and on and on, and soon there will be the 10th anniversary of the iPad and then the Apple Watch, and we'll talk about them all again.